Hi, my name is Jason Major, and I'm here for another episode of the Biblical Cinematic Universe, where we review biblical movies from the dawn of cinema history to the present. Today I'm going to be reviewing the movie called David and Goliath, Battle of Faith, which is a more recent release within the last year or two from Vertical Entertainment. This movie stars complete unknowns in the entire movie, from the actor who played David and Goliath, and it's primarily an all-white cast as well. Now, this movie is, if there's like low-budget movies and B movies, this movie's like, and then there's like direct-to-DVD movies, this would be more like underneath that even, which is very low budget. This movie has a lower budget, as an example, than a 90s episode of Hercules' Legendary Journeys. So you gotta kind of rate it in this. It's kind of like a cheaply made Christian biblical movie. It is by a Christian company, and it is not to be confused with another recent David and Goliath movie that came out about 2 years ago. That one was directed by the guy who did Suing the Devil and The Genius Club, and it starred, it's another movie completely different. That movie was also had a bigger budget, and so in this version of the movie, basically the story is that you have young David, he's tending the flock, and then Samuel comes to visit him, who's played by a really white dude, and says, you are anointed, God has anointed you to be king. What follows is a series of Batman Begins style training montage, I am not joking, in which Samuel, who I've never seen this, he's kind of shirtless, muscular, he's this old guy who's shirtless, muscular, training him how to be a warrior and training him in the art of war and the art of fighting. Sure, I've never seen this before, never thought of it before, but why not? And then you basically get to the point where you have Goliath is now attacking the Israelites, and the Philistines are attacking the Israelites in a forest, which none of this is obviously filmed in anything remotely pretending to be Israel. The credits say it was in California, so you have like a desert of California, which is completely different than Israel. And then you have like a forest, and you have like half a dozen soldiers who are wiped out by Goliath. And that's followed by David going to King Saul, and he finds about Michelle, his daughter, is offered as like the prize if you kill Goliath, and then he goes and he fights Goliath, and that's the movie. And so it was very episodic. It felt like an episode of the Bible, the TV series. However, again, and I can't stress this enough, if you've seen Bible, the TV series, which was made on a $20 million budget for the entire miniseries, from what I understand, this has a lower budget than one average episode of that series. It makes that look like, a big screen, $175 million. But that said, there's a certain charm about this, and I've seen this with the same company before. They did a movie called Joseph and Mary. Is that it kind of has this almost a play-like quality, or almost like a feeling of something that, back in the early 20th century, when they were first experimenting with cinema and they didn't have big budgets and they just used very minimalistic sets, it kind of almost reminds me of that, of like these old school movies. But again, I have to stress, even like 1931 had bigger budgets. But there's something about the dialogue and the characterization in this movie that I think, for me, at least for me, made it an enjoyable hour and a half. And that's another thing. It's only an hour and a half. It doesn't try to stretch what they're doing into too much longer. The strength of the story is that I thought that the acting of Samuel, this idea of a Batman Begins kind of training montage, where he's like training him to be a hero, this idea of David kind of now grappling with, okay, you called me to be a hero, you called me to be a king. I don't know how to do that. I've just been a lonely shepherd. I'm the youngest of the shepherds. How do we go from that to here? And he's confused about that. And that journey of faith is kind of what the heart of the movie is, and why it's called Battle of Faith. And it kind of implies the idea that once David kills Goliath, and he's now kind of taking that position of, yes, I will be king one day. Although the movie ends with that. The only weaknesses I really see in the movie is that like I said, I've been joking a lot through this video, but if you do not like the idea of a really low budget movie, maybe you won't enjoy it. But the other weakness I thought was that when you do get to King Saul, and the relationship of King Saul and Michelle, it really does feel like there's something missing there. Like they should have filled in some gaps of like, how does Saul actually know? Like Saul even references and says, I always loved your songs, but we've never established that before, that David was working for Saul. And again, that's part of the limitations of this really, really low budget, where you notice that there are very, very few actors that throughout this entire movie, and the only time you do see like a large quote army is probably CGI, and way in the distance of the background, where in the foreground you only see David fighting Goliath and a couple other people. So I'm going to recommend this as a charming little insight into that one little slice of story of the David Goliath story. There are many other King David movies, as I mentioned in a previous video, David Bathsheba, and when you take these little stories and you do something interesting with them, it's really neat to see, in my opinion. So that's it for today's episode of Biblical Cinematic Universe. There's plenty of more movies to cover, and again, we'll be covering all the different aspects of these stories. Thank you very much.